How about you, Brian?
Yeah.
Hey there. Yeah, so I'm a new dad. I had twin sons that were born during the pandemic, and then we also have I have a 2-year, almost 3-year-old now, little girl. So yeah, it was really interesting. Um, I think the big thing that stuck out to me, I can definitely relate to what a lot of people have already shared. I would say for our family, one of the big things was just that loss of connection to other family and friends. That social network, the typical support that would come when you have new, not just a baby, but new babies. Kind of takes a village, and we were very much cut off from that. And then once we did start trying to have that back integrated, like my mom moved to the area to help out, it was just, you get that parental instinct of fight or flight, kicking in, because like you see everybody as a potential vector of, the virus for your children, and you're just so concerned about protecting them, that it becomes very awkward as far as those relationships. So I would say that was the big thing for family, and just dealing with that as as now we're fully vaccinated, and everyone else for the most part that we know has gotten the vaccine. Just that reintegration and rebuilding those bonds has been very interesting. I would say our kids have been, they probably didn't notice a difference. They're so young, and our kids are so resilient. It's just now, I think someone mentioned earlier, trying to make small talk with other parents is very difficult. I've realized that the other day, taking my daughter out, and it's just like, it's awkward now at a playground or wherever, trying to make small talk with other parents. It's just, I'm having like, I don't know. So yeah, that's something new. But I appreciate everything that everyone shared so far.
I was going to say something about the small talk part. As somebody who does receptions on a daily basis, as part of our work, and small talk is like natural, So one of the things just one thing about small talk: pick a couple of topics, like 3 topics of varied kind of things, and then just try them out. And you find out one of them will hit the note there. So it's just, but it's hard. My wife is not a small talk at all. So when we, at least she wasn't. Now she is. So it's practice.
One of the things you may want to consider, and I coach this with a lot of people. There's 3 questions, and I'm a Marine, so I can only count to 3, and I write with a crayon, but there's 3 questions I use, and I use them all the time. And it's always, what's your story? It's open-ended. They'll tell you what they're comfortable with, and that'll tell you a lot about them. So it's always, what's your story? What's important to them at work? And that's various, whether they're working for me or I'm working for them, or it's somebody just out there, or a love interest. I'm married, so I have one love interest that's already taken care of. And then the third one is, so it's, what's your story? What do you do for work, or what's the challenge you face there? And then the third one is, what's your passion? What do you do for fun? And I've learned about everything from quilting to salmon fishing to COVID has started international dart competitions by video, puzzles, whatever. But you can learn something really good. And if you record that, then you can always go back to the person and say, hey, how was the salmon fishing? And that conversation always lights up. So that's one of the things we coach with. What's your story? What's important to you at work? And then what's your passion? So that may be something to consider. I know we have somebody else. Jessica, did you have something there? No? Okay.
I was muted.
We have Brian Bateman or Eric or Cam. What do you guys, what do you got?
Well, I would say for me, the most challenging thing as a dad is, so growing up myself, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. My mom just took care of me with my 9-year older than me sister. My dad was always working. He was never home. He always worked the night shift. So me and my dad growing up didn't really have a whole lot of a relationship. We didn't really start to form a relationship until probably I was out of high school, once he had retired and he was able to be more there. And when talking to my dad, one of the things he always says to me is that he regrets that he wasn't there enough for me and for my sister growing up. Even though it wasn't of any fault of his own, he was just trying to support our family. So for me, the thing that's always been a challenge for me is sort of trying to navigate being a father who's involved. And sometimes I tend to get too involved to the point where I'm stepping on my wife's feet while she's trying to fix things. And we're butting up against each other with silly stuff because it's just, I don't have a background to work with because of the fact that growing up, me and my dad were sort of two ships passing in the dark. So the biggest challenge for me really is just sort of being able to talk with other parents and other dads and see how they manage things. And as my daughter gets older, I feel like that will get easier because right now my biggest challenge is that she doesn't understand a lot of things. She's still trying to figure out the world on her own. But yeah, it's more so just trying to keep my role and know and understand it.
Eric, I think that that commonality though, in finding the people who are going through the same experience and the different ways to connect with them is so valuable. So it's interesting. Before last March, we live in a great little community there's a lot of other parents with other similarly aged kids around us on the street. So we see them a lot with each other, and it's the kind of place where you can walk outside and there'll be somebody sipping a beer or something, and you can just ask what's going on and that kind of thing, and shoot the proverbial, you know what. And then all of a sudden nobody could do that. And people, because for a variety of different reasons, people had various different levels and thresholds of what they were comfortable with, of having your kids even being within 6 feet of each other and things like that on the street. And one of the things that was interesting that happened with me is that so my two best friends and I from growing up from the time we were 5 are scattered on the 3 coasts. So I'm on the East Coast. One is in LA on the West Coast, and the other is back in Texas, where we're from. And we all have young children that are roughly the same age. And so we kind of started sharing all of our experiences a lot more rapidly than we previously were via text, and then increasingly via kind of group hangouts and sending videos back and forth. And it just was kind of a natural progression. And everybody would do it on their own time. So, we'd get a bunch in the middle of the night from the person on the West Coast, and then he would get a bunch later on when he would wake up, and that kind of a thing. But that became a great outlet to remind that, the other people you care about are going through similar experiences and learning from what they're dealing with too. And a lot of times I have the oldest of any of our kids. So there were a lot of times that they were asking me for advice, which is probably not a good idea, but still, passed for good conversation. And it got to a point where, we would obviously share all the videos of our kids doing really crazy and inadvisable things. And one of the only times we actually had like a legitimate phone call was when my friend in LA saw a video, or his daughter saw a video of our 5-year-old walking around in these princess shoes, and then immediately flipped out and said she was not going to stop screaming until he got her the princess shoes. So the call that I got after 6 months was, where do I buy the shoes online now that I can get them delivered in the next 24 hours? Because my daughter's not going to stop screaming until we get these stupid shoes. So I just thought it was a neat evolution of our friendship, because we haven't been in the same place at this point in a very, very long time. But it allowed us to really connect as dads, whereas before, I think we only kind of connected in our original framework of friendship. So this is kind of taken that to two different places, which is where we actually all are in our lives anyway. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, my best friend from childhood, he now lives in New York, and he just had a kid probably about 4 months after my daughter was born. So we both have similar age kids. So every now and then we'll try and chat just to see how things are going. We're actually having a call this evening, so
There you go.
have a Zoom chat, Zoom happy hour with him later.
Exactly. And it's, you know, and it's not the same as what Pete was talking about earlier relative to those kind of enduring friendships with other men. And I do think that men have a much harder time with that than women do. I don't think that it's not mythology. It's just, that's just not our wire. I don't know, maybe this is a very generic thought, but I mean, our wiring is just not quite as attuned to that. We don't make the effort as much sometimes, which is what it comes down to. But I do think that when, you know, particularly over this last stretch, you know, there've been a lot of ways to kind of resuscitate and build a lot of other relationships doing so remotely, and just kind of connecting with people, because that's the platform everybody's on. So you're always kind of on a level playing field there.
Yeah, I definitely am the type of person who I need to be invited to go hang out with people and with friends. I struggle at trying to open up and do that myself, just because I'll find 5 billion ways for myself to be too busy to go out and do it.
Exactly.
And if someone else tries and do it, then I have an obligation and I have to go and hang out with that person. So yeah.
We had a group of about 8 guys from the class of 1996 at Servite, at the high school I ran. We were very much a very close group, or close classmates kind of thing. But this class of 1996, the 8 or 10 guys, it's sort of part of their marriage contracts that they get 4 days every summer together, or 5 days. And they go up and they get a cabin in the mountains, and they have man days, man competition. And they, you know, carry logs across the forest and go hiking and throw mud at each other and drink beer. And they just go be guys for 4 or 5 days. And they're very close, and they come together that way. And even now that we've gotten older and our daughters are gone, we found that if one of us organizes and just sort of goes, you know what, we're having a barbecue at my house, no wives, just us. You can get those things together, and with a good bottle of Irish whiskey or Diet Coke if you want, I suppose. But especially the Irish whiskey, you can get a pretty good bonding experience.